Hey, hustlers, welcome to episode number 48 of The Hustle Show. Thank you so very much for tuning in to another amazing story that we're going to share with you. Remember, here we share it the way it is, no filter, raw conversations with amazing people, amazing stories about the harsh reality that nobody told you about being an entrepreneur. And today is no different. I mean, today we're going to share another one that I think you're going to like a lot. And before we do, I want to make sure that you hit the subscribe button right now, whether you're watching this in our YouTube channel or you're listening on the go on our podcast audio experience. Make sure you hit that subscribe button as we will continue to create top-notch motivational content for you. So hit it right now and let's get with today's story. So today, Daniel Ameduri is joining us. And a little bit for you to understand a little bit about Daniel. So he comes from futuremoneytrends.com. And when I met him through email, I asked him, why are you a successful hustler? And this was his quote unquote response. He said, I don't believe in problems, only solutions. I don't accept the idea of having bad news. There is a solution and opportunity in everything we do. What makes us a hustler is having the confidence that you can overpromise and overdeliver. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Looking forward to it.
I'm super excited, man. I really like that answer for that question because really, what we do in life, even though a lot of entrepreneurs or a lot of want to be entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, they don't really understand how entrepreneurship, how business works. A lot of people think that is, you make money out of the nowhere, when in reality, what you should be doing is solving problems.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah,
how did you get into entrepreneurship? Share with us a little bit about the story there.
I can go back to when I was a young boy. I was always fascinated with money and always fascinated with entrepreneurship. Used to get in trouble at school for selling pencils out of my backpack or candy. And then later on in life, when I became a teenager, made money putting Christmas lights up at houses at age 18. Got out of high school, bought my first rental property in Southern California at age 18, and then just kept buying and just never stopped and got into some ownership of some gyms, and really just was always fascinated with business and building and stacking cash flow. Was never interested in materialism. Was always focused on building something long term, building something large, and always focused on that spirit that just, man, it just fed me. When I would do a business or when I would start a business, that was like the most exciting part of a business. Actually, it's kind of sad, but when you have a full functioning business after 5-10 years, it's a slow growth business now. When you first start them, that's when all the exciting stuff is. It's like a river. So for me, it started at a young age. I was always fascinated with business and always interested in making money.
That's about right. And one of the things that, how, it's very common nowadays, like trying to find yourself, trying to find that one thing that is your passion. And I don't know if it's for good or bad, but like one of my passions is starting businesses. Like it gets me so excited. But at the same time, when that excitement starts to go down, it's hard to bring it back up. You just want to jump into the next thing, jump into the next train, whatever trend is coming your way. So it sounds like you were like this. How were you able to kind of stick to your guts and try to stick to the one business that you were trying out and you were trying to build?
Well, one thing I learned in life, and it took a while, and even people had told me to it, but I still didn't learn it until I had to experience it. But you'll make the most of your money will come from what you're an expertise in or how you make money. People are always looking for ways to make new money, but really that person in the mirror is always going to be your best return on capital. And so I would try different businesses, and I used to love getting into the idea of getting into different sectors, and I would be successful in the publishing business specifically. And then I would, I have a partner and we were like, let's go find, a different brick and mortar type business that we can buy. And we'd evaluate them. But in the end, it always came back to, I can't do anything right now in my mind to make more money than what I do right now. And so that was just doubling down on what we do. And so, okay, so how do we make more money doing what we already do? And it really became this passion and driven and just company attitude of we always over promise and we always over deliver. And it's putting our backs against the wall, putting ourselves in situations that forces us to have that growth, forces us to come up with those new ideas. When you promise a client that you're going to be able to deliver on something, or you build a goal, an exceptional goal, like at futuremoneytrends.com, we're trying to create 1,000 millionaires over the next 2 years. When you create those type of goals and you're focused on it, and you have to figure out, okay, now I've just told 1,000 people we're going to help them become millionaires. Or actually a lot more than 1,000. I just think that 1,000 you come out at the other end. But how do I deliver that? Where do I find the cash flow ideas, the speculative investment ideas that they'll need to push forward? And that's what's the fun part now is just making sure we always over deliver, and we thrive off of over delivering.
That makes sense. And what got you involved into real estate to begin with? What's the story with that?
Real estate, like a lot of people, there's a fascination because it's big numbers and you can use leverage. I can control $100,000 asset with $10,000. And I read a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was a teenager. And, Robert Kiyosaki was into real estate. And then I had a mentor in a gym, and he was also into real estate. So it was kind of, something I saw that I could do. I started buying real estate rental properties when I was 18 years old because I didn't know that you weren't supposed to be able to. So when I would buy this, I had about this Carlton Sheets thing when I was like 16 years old and talked about creative financing. That's what I did. I did creative financing. I did no money down for the first 3 or 4 properties. I borrowed the realtor's commission. She was a broker. I actually borrowed the broker's commission as my down payment on my second property. I've done all sorts of seller finance deals, you name it, I've structured them. And I've done very few conventional financing loans. I have done some, but for the most part, I don't even think I have a conventional mortgage right now, probably some seller finance mortgage. But I just always like to make the deals happen. And I guess it was a blessing in disguise that I did not learn conventional type of real estate investing, because I probably would have hit walls with conventional financing. I just immediately went out and just did it.
Yeah. That's about, right. And that's when the knowing yourself comes in, that you knew that that's what you like and that's where you double down. And it's a fascinating story to hear how people get into real estate, even though, depending on where you look at it, some people say it's easy, some people say it's too hard, I guess, depending on your strengths or not. But when you were starting out, I mean, it sounds like you kind of had that mentality and the mindset, even without knowing it, you were ready to hit it hard. How were those first 6 months when you really started investing in real estate? How were those first 6 months in the business?
Well, one thing that stands out in the first 6 months is I was only 18 years old, and I remember meeting the tenants for my first time that were going to be my first renters. And I was a little intimidated, and I could tell that they were seeing this kid, get out of the car. So I hate to say it, I'm going to be honest, I lied. I told them that I was the landlord's nephew. So one of the things because I just had looked like a little baby out of high school, and I was worried that they might try to take advantage of me, of course. So I told them I was just there to collect the rent for my uncle. And, that was the relationship I had with them for like 3 years. It was horrible. I felt horrible about it in hindsight, but at the time I just did it because I had a young face and I wanted to be able to have, a more fair conversation with tenants who were probably in their 40s or 50s. And then another thing in real estate in the first 6 months was the walls that I did hit with mortgage brokers. But I was able to find a few mortgage brokers in the business who were favorable to creative financing. So it was interesting as an 18-year-old to find so many people close-minded to seller finance deals or realtors who wanted nothing to do with putting in lowball offers. So that was probably the first 6 months, was just realizing that nobody wanted to cooperate with me in trying to do things that were out of the ordinary. And I think any leader or anybody who's trying to have some financial success or whatever they're trying to do, you're going to find that you're alone. Now, there are others of us out there. All of them are listening to this podcast spread out across the world. So we're out here, but you're going to find that your average person that you'll talk to, your friends, your neighbors, they don't have that same vision. And that's what you have to overcome, is that they don't have that same vision, and they're not going to have that same vision. And that's okay. So, whether you're dealing with real estate or another business, in real estate, I had to deal with that. Most realtors wanted nothing to do with my type of investing. They wanted, somebody to come in there and give them 30% down. So, and sadly, and this happens a lot in life, because that's the only thing they'd ever worked with, they believed that was the only way to do it. So when I actually approached them about doing zero down at the time, or creative financing, they were like, there's no such thing. And of course, I had to just not stop. And that's the only way it could be done.
Is that something, because that's something that calls my attention, like the way you did it, the way that you were able to start into real estate investing and all this thing, is that something that anybody can get into, or is it like super hard or to learn, or so there's like a secret that only a few people in the world know, or what's the deal there?
I think anyone can make money in real estate, and everybody should make some money in real estate. It's a great diversification for investments. Now, I think the people who are going to make the most money are the people who are going to put their whole life into it, that this is what I do. They're going to burn all the bridges behind them, and they're like, I'm into real estate, whether it's being a realtor, a broker, property manager, or a wholesaler, which might be the most profitable way to do it. But anybody can do it. If you're listening to this and you got Rune credit, look for seller finance deals. I promise you, they're out there. You just got to look for them. They're everywhere. I've done them in California, Nevada, Tennessee, Indiana, Texas. They're out there. So you can look for a seller finance deal. You can also, you have to really be open-minded, especially if you're in a hole where you might need to come in with a partner. I got to tell you, the coolest thing about working as you make more money and you work with larger companies or wealthier individuals, is you'll find that rich people really just want to keep getting rich. And so one thing, if you're broke and you don't have any money, partner with somebody who has money. And you're going to say, well, how do I reach out to those people? Look, I'm telling you, rich people, wealthy people, investors are always looking for a deal. You can get the deal, whether it's in real estate or business. And once you have that deal, that's your ticket. Put an ad on Craigslist that you're looking for a partner. Do a YouTube video. Look for people in your area, or people you might even know. But the fact of the matter is, every single person who's wealthy, if you present them an idea that they can make money, they're going to do it. And that's how you could find a partner. But you could also just do creative financing. There are many ways to make money in real estate. The important thing is just to make sure that you're going to have positive cash flow, and that you're not investing for appreciation. Appreciation is without a doubt how you're going to make the most money in real estate over the long term, but it can't be the reason and the why you're buying it, because if you do that, you could end up in a cash crunch.
That makes sense. And you mentioned earlier the book of Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that was the very first book that I read when I got the spirit fired up. I think I was like 20 back in the day when I read that book too. And I remember like it was yesterday when I read the phrase of how he got he got the opportunity of somebody was selling some land, and he knew somebody else who might be interested. So I think he put like $5,000 just to hold the property. He called the other guy. He's like, give me 50,000 and the land is yours. And he said, I made 50,000 in a day. I can't, it's one of those things that I will never forget. Like it's mind blowing.
And that's what a real estate wholesaler is. That's really like all they are. And they're in every major city. They just find the deals, they lock them up, and they hand it over to somebody else on a silver platter.
Wow. And we're everybody else is just trying to complicate things, trying to figure out how to make a few $1,000s. And it's really, just being creative, getting out there, getting to connect with people. What would you say, like, what's like the step one to get into this real estate business?
I would say reading a simple book. You don't have to read, a specific book or a class or a course, but you certainly need to open your mind that there is a whole nother world out there. So if you're on, whether you're Googling a report or going down to Barnes & Noble, look at wholesaling. They might even call it bird dogging, but look at those type of transactions. They're very easy. Don't be overwhelmed with contracts. You'd be surprised what's legal. I mean, you could literally write a contract on a sheet of paper and have somebody sign it, and it's a contract. So don't feel like you need to have 40 pages and you're a broker. So that was the first step, is just education. The next step would be to find out what area you want to focus on, and then pound that area. Know everything about that area. Knock on doors if you need to. Really get out there. I've knocked on tons of doors, looking for foreclosures, looking for deals, and realize that the best opportunities are going to be, with other people who are already out there. So the first thing I do with certain areas that I like, I call the best realtors in the area. And of course, those are the ones we have most traffic, and let them know what you're looking for. So in my case, I always tell them, I want what nobody else can buy. I want a foundation problem. I want a kitchen that blew up. I want a house that's structurally not sound. And I've given my number to about 6 different brokers. I literally just went to a house yesterday to look at one that's a foundation problem, probably a complete tear down. And that's the deals I'm looking for, because if you're going to be the paint, carpets, and blinds person, that's what everybody's going to do. You have to find a niche. And if you really want to have a creative financing deal where you do your own deal, and you're not just looking for it on Craigslist for somebody advertising it, you find properties that people can't get loans for, like what I was just describing. So one thing about a foundation problem is no mortgage company will loan money to a house that has a foundation problem. So you find a house like that, for example, you find the owner, and once you've found the owner, whether you're writing them a letter or looking them up in public directory, you structure some sort of deal like, look, I can create a contract. Give me an option to buy it, or let me assume the note. Let me do a wrap around mortgage for a year and a half, 2 years, while I fix it and flip it. You can create something directly with the owner. He has nothing to lose, right? Because, or she has nothing to lose, because the house is sitting there with a foundation problem and not a single person can get a loan for it. So you can create those win-wins. Other areas, I've let realtors know that if there's a divorce sale that needs to be expedited, and where my advantage comes in, and this might not be a person listening to this show, but you might know somebody if you can get the right deal. Even me, email me at Future Money Trends if you got a great real estate deal. But one competitive advantage that I have created as a buyer, and this is of course me in my mid-30s, not as a 20-year-old, is that I can close the deal in 3 days. I've had them call me on Wednesday, and because I'm just wiring cash, and that is a competitive advantage. If a divorce has let this thing go all the way to foreclosure or something, all of a sudden it becomes an urgent situation, and nobody's worried about profit. At this point, everybody just wants to get this foreclosure off their name. So, find out what your competitive advantages are. Again, I strongly recommend people focus on partnering with people. And I can tell you, every city in the United States has a few real estate investors who are the big whales in that city. You don't need to steal business from them. You just need to know their number, because when you find some business, hand it to that guy. He'll take it.
That makes sense, man. And I appreciate, the honesty and the tips. Everybody that is listening, that is interested in getting into real estate investing and all this craziness that you have going on. It's amazing. And I want to look back a little bit on this story that you're sharing as well. Do you ever have one of those moments where you're investing, the business and everything that you were doing got a little too crazy or too tough on you, that you thought about quitting and maybe start doing something else, maybe a job or maybe another business?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can tell you in 2008, which led to the Future Money Trends letter, because I had created a YouTube channel that was forecasting the crisis. I was telling everybody Dow was going to collapse and Lehman Brothers was going to go out. I felt this because I was knocking on doors at foreclosures. But I went big in the real estate market in Southern California because I had confused a bull market with brains. And that can happen. It happens right now. People buying Bitcoin. Everybody thinks they're a Bitcoin trader, and it's going straight up. Same thing in the stock market. And that's what happened to me as an 18-year-old buying real estate in Southern California in the year 2000. Imagine how that jaded my brain by the time we got to 2007. I thought I was pretty smart, right? Because I had investing the whole time the market's going like this, straight up. And so in 2007, I bought as many homes as I could, smart enough to realize that the real estate market was cracking. But thinking I was smart enough to actually get these homes and get out. And I ended up with a ton of foreclosures, imploded my entire life financially. And here I went from being, a success story to somebody who was absolutely depressed and absolutely gave up on even trying to be rich. And I was over it. I felt like I had my chance. I had really screwed it up, and kid is on the way. Wife's a school teacher, and it's over. It's my chance to get rich is behind me. I need to get a job. And I did. 2009, again, think of the mindset. United States is essentially in a depression. Foreclosures, real estate market is wrecked. So that was what I was doing. So I got a job at a grocery store. I was working at nights and still doing my YouTube channel talking about the economy. And then my wife was like, "You really should start a newsletter because it's something you're passionate about." After ignoring her for over a year, finally started a letter, was able to quit the grocery job. Wife was able to quit the teaching job. And then it just took off from there, and I've never looked back. And that was in 2010 when I started the Future Money Trends letter with my cousin Kenny. And we now have 5 letters, fairly sizable publishing company. We have several employees, several people we work with. And it's just the biggest blessing. I literally wake up every day. First of all, most important thing, wake up when I'm done sleeping. I think that's like the most like treasured asset I have in my life. And then, do my hobby. I read, I study, and then I tell everybody what I've heard about either cash flow ideas or speculative ideas or just personal finance journeys. So, that is, I don't even remember what the question was, but that's where I am today.
That's awesome, man. No, yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. I mean, we all go through the struggles, the roller coaster, the ups and downs, and everything as an entrepreneur. It's always fascinating to me to hear what other people go through and how they overcome it, because it's not how hard life punches, but it's actually that you're able to pick up yourself and stand up and then keep going. So kudos to you for doing that. And you were talking a little bit about your new lifestyle. So I want to compare it a little bit. What does a Monday look like for you nowadays versus back in the day when you were hustling, when you were out there knocking on doors?
Monday through Friday, it's pretty much the same. Wake up when I'm done sleeping. I usually spend the first hour of the day with the family. We like to have a French press coffee. We like to relax. I have a real lazy morning, not like a lot of hustlers out there. Wasn't always like that. I used to wake up at 4 in the morning, but usually like to lounge around with the kids. My kids are homeschooled. I have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. Hang out at the house for a little bit, and then usually around 9 to 9:30, I'll sit down and then I start reading, and that's the best part, right? So like it's not like I'm going into some hectic office. I'm just sitting there reading for 2 hours. I either read a book or I'll read news, depending on what I'm looking for. If I'm looking for new investment ideas, I'm probably reading the news and reading different content on the internet. If I'm just looking to, kind of expand my knowledge base, right now I'm on a real Roman history kick, and then I always like reading some sort of thing about monetary history or the future of technology, because very optimistic about the future as a millennial, especially. So that's what the day looks like. And then I'll write a letter. I'll speak to several people who email us. And then I also have a few different partners who work with me in the publishing industry. And we talk about different types of trends, different investment ideas that are working for others. And I also love, and this is like so selfish, but it's like what I get to do for everybody who's subscribed to Future Money Trends. I test investment ideas. So there's a ton of stuff going on with fintech right now, like Lending Club and Pure Street, Fundrise. I'll throw some money at those, and then 6 months goes by, and might write about my experience. Or sometimes I've waited an entire year, like with Lending Club, because I was really concerned about that one, or Pure Street. But I get to write reviews and say, "Hey, everybody, look, here's my experience," and it's so cool because I get to like screenshot. I'm like, here's exactly how it worked. Here's how many loans I made. Here's how many defaults happened. Here's how, how much income was generated, or the yield was averaged out to. And so that's probably one of the funnest things that I get to do, is I get to experiment on all these money-making ideas. And when one makes money and gets my attention, and I get to pass it on to everybody at Future Money Trends.
It's awesome, man. That sounds like a lot of fun too. You know, you're testing, you're having fun, and then you're creating content on top of that. You know, it's basically like what I'm doing right now. You know, this is having fun.
Absolutely. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. You know, the podcasts. You know, you get to reach out to people. I've reached out. I don't know about you, but I've reached out to billionaires and gotten replies back and interviewed them. You know, my favorite author. Now, when I read a book, instead of putting it away for the next 20 years, I look at it and I search, see if the guy's got a Twitter or an email, and I email them and ask them if I can interview them. And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely an icebreaker for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now is a better time to be an entrepreneur. As anybody listening to this show, my goodness, with the internet, it's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. And I know a lot of millennials are frustrated that they get out of college and the jobs aren't there, and you know, the cubicle's not waiting for you. But that's okay. Just dust it off. Let it go. There's such a better life for you that awaits you. You can have it. And you know, we're already moving into the freelance economy, and the freelance economy is just like you're just a business. You know, and look, 100 years ago, it was the freelance economy, and you know, we had about a 30-year experiment of corporate America and the corporate ladder and pensions, and turns out the experiment is kind of busting on people. And we're going back to that freelance economy where, in the end, no matter what you do, it's about how much value you can deliver to another person. And if you can deliver it to a lot of people, you can make more money.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So it looks like you've come a long way. You've done a lot of things, but I want to hear from you and hear your input. What do you think is the one thing that gave you the success that you have so far? The one strength, the one weakness, the one whatever you want to call it, that got you to where you are right now?
You know, it was in that answer. And it's my brain is hardwired into despising problems, or the idea that there are problems. I really do believe there is a solution to everything. And, you know, it was something that was probably put in by my father. He never allowed us to quit and never allowed us to give up on anything. And of course, you know, sometimes as a child, you want to just not be doing something, and he just never let us quit. And it was just not in his system. He's passed now, but he was 70 years old riding 85, 90-mile long bike rides. I mean, this person was not a quitter. So that's what he taught me. And so that is probably, you know, the most important thing I can say is that no problem that would come to us, and some of them were big, we overcame, because there's so many things out there as an entrepreneur. You have to deal with, you know, competition. First of all, you have to make sure your customers are happy. And then, guess what? You get a letter from the IRS or some other government regulatory agency. And if you're like me, like, I just want to curl up in a ball and hide when I see paperwork. So when the IRS or a regulatory body asks you for paperwork, you're like, oh crap, you know, I don't keep track of all this stuff. So there's all kinds of things that come, and you just have to overcome and keep going. Because I honestly believe, because I'm not anybody special, I'm not that smart, I honestly believe that if you just don't stop, you can become successful. I really do. I believe if you just refuse to just let this go, like most people, like, I want to be a millionaire, and then they wake up the next day and they let it go. Or some people make the commitment, I want to be a millionaire, and they work at it for 3 months, 6 months, and then they give up. But then there's the guy who just like, I'm just not going to give up. I'm just not going to stop. And maybe it takes 5 years, maybe it takes 10 years, but I'm telling you, it can happen a lot faster than most people think, especially if you're committed. Because if you're committed and you're not wasting money, you can become wealthier even faster.
Wow, such powerful words, man, for sure. And I want to change gears a little bit here from talking about your story to what I like to call the hustle round. We're gonna play this little word game. I'm gonna throw a word at you. Whatever first word comes to mind, that's what we're gonna say out loud. Does that sound like a plan?
Just one word?
Just one word.
Yeah.
Try to stick to one. All right, ready? Hustle.
Hard work.
Employee.
Hate it.
Boss.
Happy.
College.
Despise it.
Fear.
Overcome.
Weakness.
Strength.
Strengths.
Delivering.
Motivation.
Tony Robbins.
Books.
Kiyosaki.
And last but not least, Daniel Ameduri.
Future money trends. Denise,
Awesome.
Something to promote.
For sure. All right. So I'm going to give you a few seconds. If you don't mind just sharing a little motivation to the hustlers that are listening. Maybe they started their business. They're not at the point of where they want to be. Maybe they have a corporate job. They have a side gig going on. What would you say to them to inspire them to keep pushing, to keep hustling?
Guys, less than 10 years ago, I imploded my whole life in the financial sector and had zero. Less than 10 years ago, my wife and I went into a bankruptcy attorney to see what our options were. Less than 6 years ago, I had just started, or 7 years ago, I just started my business. 6 years ago, became a millionaire. A few years ago, probably became a decamillionaire at some point. I'm just telling you, I'm nobody special. I didn't even go to college. Find out what you want to do. Find out what your life's purpose is. I always tell people, what do you want people to say at your funeral? Narrow it down to like 3 things. I guarantee you those 3 things, what you want to be remembered for is what you want to live for. That's your life's passion. That's your life's purpose. What are 3 things you want people to say about you at your funeral? That's where you're going to find your life's purpose and your life's passion. And I'm just telling you, this can be done. My wife and I, we saved a lot of money. And I'm saying like percentage wise, not just a lot of money. And we saved money. We did creative things. We did something as crazy as we got rid of our dogs we had for 7 years because they had vet bills and we just didn't want to deal with the expenses. That's hard. That's not normal. We stopped eating meat, stopped eating out. We shopped at certain grocery stores because we knew they were, had very, very good, cheap produce. I mean, there is that commitment and there is that doing. I'm just telling you, I'm just a regular guy who just stayed focused and just did it. And I think you can do it. I did it in less than 5 years. So I think if you're really focused, I mean, if you're willing to be the millionaire who drives a 2003 Nissan Altima, and that's what I did. Today I drive an Escalade because I like a little more comfort. But I'm telling you, even when I crossed that million mark, and even when I made $500,000 in a year or something on income, I was still focused. I didn't stop or even take a break until I had hit a certain specific number, which was my freedom number. And that's what I think you should focus on, and just don't let it go. Forget about what everybody else is doing. From financing their cars to financing their homes. Forget about it. That's not normal. Don't do it. Don't participate in it. Your life is finite. So that would be my motivation, is that don't waste your time. You only have the one life to live.
That's awesome, man. I appreciate the honesty and the tips and everything that you're saying. And I just want to make sure that people can connect with you and follow you. What are you up to? Just stay in touch with you. How can they do so? How can they find out more about you?
If you go to futuremoneytrends.com, you can subscribe free. We provide our weekly wealth digest, passive income ideas, as well as any new income ideas I stumble across. Advertisers on the website pay the bills. So don't worry about ever paying for anything. You're not going to get upsold into another newsletter. Subscribe to Future Money Trends and enjoy my hobby with me.
That's awesome, man. And I want to thank you so very much for being here, sharing your story, being very honest and transparent with us, talking about your 5-year, 10-year overnight success that not everybody is willing to talk about. So I really appreciate it. And I wish you nothing but success. And to everybody that is listening, make sure, you can go to thehustleshow.co/THS48, and they will be one click away to connect with you.
Great show. Thank you very much.
Guys, thanks so much for tuning in to the Hustle Show audio experience. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And even if you didn't, make sure you subscribe to the podcast right now. It's still free. Visit thehustleshow.co for all the show notes and to watch the video experience of this episode. We'll see you soon.